Let's do this.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone. One more session here, BWX Symposium, today with Gabriel Ferman and Viveta Jen. Thank you, Viveta. Viveta, she's
I think we're
industry
losing
specialist.
your audio a little bit, Rodrigo. You were saying Viveta.
Okay. Yeah, Viveta, it's an industry expert, specialist, MTPE expert. So, would like to introduce yourself, Viveta?
Yeah, okay. So let me first say hello to everyone, wherever you are. It is a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for this invitation. And I'm very happy to be with Gabriel today because we had the chance to meet at Lockworld in person. And I was inspired by his enthusiasm and his vision. I also like, by the way, your website because it is very much translation centric at BureauWorks. And in our industry, linguists are at the heart of the business. And from a business perspective, it is always nice to share how grateful we are for their daily contribution to the community. So, anyway, introductions. I'm Viveta Jean, translation and localization industry specialist and AI language solutions coach, currently operating as an SLV with 20 years of experience in various roles. I'm a passionate linguist, post editor, and copywriter, and MTP expert, focusing right now on my PhD research in the field of machine translation post editing training. So today, our topic is subtitling in the AI era. And this is a very interesting and challenging topic as subtitling is very demanding, time sensitive tasks that demands creativity, cultural sensitivity, honed problem solving and decision making skills by the linguist. And I'm happy to join this discussion about how AI comes into play with Gabriel.
Wow, Viveta, I need a few minutes just to unpack everything you just said, and it's great to have you. By the way, and Rodrigo, you didn't mention yourself as the host. You're always one of the participants. I noticed in our episodes, you never introduce yourself. So I'd love to know a little bit about you, Rodrigo.
Nice. I was change my position here to see if my internet gets better. So I'm Rodrigo Demetrio. I'm head of marketing here at BitterWorks. So I'm the one crazy guy who thinks about some content, and I hope everyone enjoy our content today. Yeah, that's me.
Very cool. Very cool. And uh, let me just introduce myself since everybody is introducing themselves. I'm Gabriel Fairman, founder and CEO of BureauWorks. Really nice to be here with everybody today. And yeah, I think last time, Viveta, you and I spoke, we were in Malmo and we didn't talk at all about AI really. I think we just had a broad conversation, but very interested in hearing your perspectives and ideas. So this is all very cool. All right, so let's get to it. And Vivek, I'm going to share my screen. Please feel free to ask me any and all questions. This is a lot of this stuff is very new. Some of it is maybe more self-intuitive than others, but again, it's super interactive and let's make it fun for our audience. So here we go. All right. Let me pick a project here and share my screen. Hold on just a sec. I need to figure out all my windows. All right. Let's start sharing. Let me share all my screen. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Hopefully,
Yes.
yes. And Vivid, I think I don't think you've ever seen BWX, right? I think this is your first-hand experience, or have you seen or worked with it before?
Yeah, this makes it even more interesting because If it is the first time, then I'm going to ask you many, many things.
Yeah, it couldn't be better. Really, makes it a lot more spontaneous and real. So this is BWX. It's our project screen, and basically just a listing of projects by status and things like that. But I'm going to break this conversation first in two different, first talking more about the AI and then talking about how it applies to video more specifically. So as far as the AI goes, right? I think the key thing I keep stressing in all of my demos, and I can't stress it enough, really, when I talk about it, is that a lot of people think about AI as a human replacer or something that's going to make humans be less, whatever they do, less worthy or yeah, substitutable, basically. And the way we're approaching AI is all about, and I'll show you here in a few slides, but basically, you've been in the industry for a long time. Most cat tools, they all have a translation memory, which basically is sentences and source, sentences and target, right, stored in a database, and sentences and terms and source and targets term in a term base, right? So far, so good, right, Viveta? That's what you're used to seeing.
That's the normal case. Yes.
Right. And the key thing I keep emphasizing is this is all syntactical, right? It's all, there's no understanding of what's being stored. So a good example I'd like talking about is, let's say I have the term red in my glossary and I come across the word reddish. It's not going to suggest a relevant term because the syntactically reddish and red have nothing to do with each other. Semantically, they're very similar, but our matching has been so far always syntactical, right? And it's same thing with sentences, right? Like, let's say there's a sentence in the translation memory that says John went to the store to buy some stuff, and then there's another sentence that says John has gone to the grocery store to procure things. Semantically, the sentences say exactly the same thing semantically, but syntactically, completely different, no match. So we're used to syntax, right? That's been our world of localization so far. So far, so good.
Perfect.
Okay, and just to exemplify this, right? Even in more sophisticated cat tool scenarios, you basically have a translator is offered a translation memory feed when it's available, when it's above a certain threshold. So whether it's above 50% or 75% above a certain threshold, the translator is offered a TM feed. If the term base is on, the translator is offered a term. And if the machine translation is on, then provided that there's no TM, a machine translation feed is provided, right? Or pre-translated into a file. That's the current, let's say, paradigm. And I would say one thing, Viveta, that really amazes me is that I find this old. And when I talk to translators, a lot of translators don't even use machine translation yet. So there's something to be said about how to get people to treat technology in a friendlier way. And right now, I think we're doing a really bad job at that as an industry. But we'll get into that conversation.
Yeah.
And essentially, what we're going to be showing today from an AI perspective is how large language models allow the translator to receive a seamless feed, right? So typically, and just to illustrate this, is let's open here a translation project. So, and let me find one that I really want over here. I have a few different languages open from a demo I did yesterday. Okay, this is good. Before I go on, Viveta, any languages? I know you speak languages other than English. Which are those?
French, Spanish. French, Spanish,
Perfect.
Greek.
Okay, amazing. So you're a polyglot. Very cool. So I'll focus stuff on Spanish. This is Latin American Spanish, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So typically, and let's turn off the AI just so that we can see the difference. So I'm turning off the AI translation, the AI review, and the translation smells. I'm turning all of this off. So typically, when I go into the suggestion, right, and I'm looking at this, let me remove this and apply the machine translation. So as a translator, I have this complicated task where I have to look at the machine translation feed, and I have to first, let's notice that there are tags present in the source that the machine translation has removed, typical machine translation behavior. Second is that there are terms here used in the glossary, and notice that we are mapping out your is in the glossary as usted. Notice that TMS is being translated as sistema, and notice that manage is being suggested in the glossary as gestione, which is in a different verb conjugation than it should be, right? It's not manage in the infinitive sense; it's manage in the active sense. So a translator is left with the arduous task of looking at this blue feed here and saying, reading through it and saying, okay, first, is it accurate? Second, is it compliant to the glossary? And notice that it's not, right? So for instance, the TMS was translated as TMS. In the glossary, it should have been sistema, right? Notice that right now, and let's even give it a better example. Right now, the glossary is usted, so now it's translating as su, which makes sense. But let's say in the glossary, it's tu. It's more informal. Okay, so there is a discrepancy between what's in the glossary, what's in the machine translation, and if there are things in the translation memory, there are further discrepancies, right? So there's a lot of linguistic conflict resolution that takes place. And I'm stuck, right? What I'm going to have to do is really read through this one time, read through the glossary, read through it again, manually come in here and change stuff, right? And then, okay, I change sistema. Does the rest of the sentence make sense? And then I have to change this to tu, right? That's the typical translation paradigm. And then when I write this, it's going to be a part of the translation memory. So far, so good?
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's turn on the AI to see the difference. Okay, notice that now the AI button is on. Now let's ask AI to translate this. Let me actually remove this because I fixed this manually. So let's first let's ask AI to translate this. Let's apply the translation. And notice that the AI solved this for me. It says
Mm-hmm.
un sistema, and it's also saying tu. So it fixed what's in the machine translation. So that's the big paradigm shift, is the large language model is now learning from me as a translator. And if I teach it more things, and let's teach it another example. Let's say that we don't want to call agencias de traducción. Let's say we want to call these oficinas as an example. Notice that it's picking up that it's a noun. If I say oficinas, let's teach it some more stuff here. And feel free to make any suggestions of things that you'd like to teach it. Terminology features. Let's call terminology
Mm-hmm.
glossarios to see what happens. And let's, what else can we teach it? Let's teach management as administración. Notice that it's using gestión right now. Let's teach it as
Mm-hmm.
administración. Okay. All right, so we taught it quite a few more things, right? Now you can notice that the yellow stuff has expanded with the things that we just taught it. Now, if we
Mm-hmm.
ask AI to translate again, and I apply the translation, notice that now it's using perfecto para traductores, oficinas de traducción y administración. Right? It's applying everything that we just taught it. So it's
Everything's
learning it.
there. Mm-hmm.
Everything is there. It's learning in runtime. And let me add a caveat to everything. So one thing that throws some people off is that um, it's a probabilistic engine, right? And it's contextual. So it's not just blindly applying the glossary, it's changing the terms when necessary, flexing things. So one example here is, for instance, the administración in this case is lowercase, but it decided to keep this in low and uppercase to match the source. As an example, it may decide, like I run examples all the time. Sometimes I add terms to the glossary as to keep them in English, and it may decide in certain contexts to abide by the glossary, in other contexts to override the glossary. So there's a little bit getting used to the fact that it's not a one-to-one rule. It's not a rule-based system. It's a probability-based decision making. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it solves a lot in terms of manual work, and then it gives more time to the linguists to deal with their cognitive things. So less cognitive effort at some point, and more time to do essential stuff. So this is what we want here.
Yeah, I would say exactly what you're saying, but I would just qualify it's like less manual effort, more higher level cognitive things,
Mm-hmm.
what you call the essential stuff, like thinking
Exactly.
about the meaning, the wording, and all of that. And one
Exactly.
more thing that the AI brings is what we call BWX translation smells. And it's saying here the translation uses sistema for TMS in the source, but sistema is more general term and may not accurately convey the meaning of TMS, translation management system. So it's understanding that TMS is referring to a translation management system. It is recommended to use TMS or Sistema de Gestión de Traducción for consistency. So in addition to having the contextual awareness during the translation process, it's also flagging for potential errors. So that's something, in my opinion, very, very cool, just because it's doing so much more than we're normally used to, right? It's not sure if that's making sense, but the smells is a semantic verifier, right? Just to compare and contrast, when we were talking about syntactical stuff, this is a typical QA thing in translation, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
doubled words, non-breaking spaces, tags, and all of that, right? That's what we normally test for when we run QAs. Translation smells is not running for syntactical things, it's running for semantical things. So pretty cool as far as like a translator now has a sidekick as far as offering them, hey, maybe you got this wrong, take a better look. And again, I think one key aspect of it that we really want to emphasize is that in the end it's the translator that gets to decide, right? It's like we're not saying that this is replacing the translator. Sure, it's very good, it's much better than machine translation, but the translator is still the supervisor of everything that's happening. And our goal is to allow the translator to evolve into what we call a language flow architect or language flow engineer, right? Where they're working with language so as to produce the expected results and not necessarily to like correct words and fix things.
So at this point, I have a question, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
So we see all the potential, and then you mentioned that the concern of the translators is what about the future. So in
Mm-hmm.
order to calm down the translators that there is future for them, is there a way to find out in the output of the AI, where would be the potential errors of it for the linguist to know what exactly to look for? Because we know we have the glossary, there are the automatic
Yeah.
substitutions. So
Mm-hmm.
what are the traps there that they should take care of? Because in this case, probably we need higher expertise on the end of the linguist to tackle the different potential errors, if any.
Yeah. So the smells is what's flagging potential errors,
Mm-hmm.
and so that as far as a guide, the smells is like an added layer of consciousness, let's say, where it's like, okay, you make your changes, and the smells is that additional detection, error detection mechanism. But as far as what you're saying, as far as relevance, the way I see it is exactly the what you first said, which is because the AI is getting rid of a lot of the grunt work. What happens is that you have so many things that are you open up so much space for higher order cognitive analysis, right? So that's something that I'm going to be writing a lot about. It's like, you know how if you do linguistics or literary studies, you go into literary theory and deconstructionism, interpretation theory, all these like semiotics, all these branches of like production of and management of meaning, right? A lot of this higher order stuff, it just gets smushed under the fact that most translators, they have to translate a lot of words to make their income. That's just the life of a translator, right? I don't know many translators out there other than full-time employees that are not paid by words. So basically, the words have been so far the determiner of income. And in my opinion, we're going to open the door for uh, quality and effort to be the determiners of income and the actual output. So, just as an example here, like let's say I'm a translator and I'm looking at this, and okay, now I know that it's according to the glossary, but I'm looking at the text. I'm saying perfecto para traductores, oficinas de traducción y administración de localización empresarial. I'm like, no, I don't like this localización empresarial. This makes no sense in Spanish. I'm going to teach it that enterprise localization should be traducción para compañías, as an example. And I mistyped this. Compañías. Okay. So now I added this to the glossary. And I continue reading. Un sistema que reúne todas las características tradicionales de análisis, segmentación de memoria, traducción y glosarios, y agrega capas de administración. I also find this weird. Capas, no, this is not the meaning of layers. In this case, I want to say that layers should be niveles, for instance. And let's
Mhm.
add that to the glossary too. And now let's ask AI to translate this again. And there it is. It has translated that. And now I can look at it again. And perfecto para traductores, oficinas de traducción y administración de traducción para compañías, un sistema. Look how it notice y agrega niveles de administración. Okay, now this is making more sense for me. It's still flagging stuff at the spell check level as well. And the spell check is also what's really cool. The spell check is also powered by AI. So the suggestions are always very relevant. So it's noticing that I misspelled compañías. I accept it and it's going to apply it. And then let's say glossarios, same thing. I can apply the error. And I'm gonna accept here. Now I fix glossarios as well. And notice that it's different, picking up now two smells. One smell for translation agencies as oficinas de traducción, and it is recommended to use consistent terminology. So the smells is recurring, right? As the more I change
Mhm.
it. But the cool thing, Vivetta, is that I'm not just anymore fixing this sentence. I'm teaching the engine. So next time we come across any similar thing like agencies or any of the concepts that we taught it will learn from what I'm doing. So what's cool is that translators become, in the past you had to be like maybe a linguistics engineer to be training a machine tuning or training a machine translation model and things like that. And no longer. Right now we're talking about any translator creating their own engines that are very personalized, very used to their level of to exactly how they want to communicate with people. So in my opinion, answering your comment, it's like the way I see this is if we're successful in this direction. And there was a metaphor the other day that Bridget Heileck used, which is comparing this to robotic surgery. And the idea is, it doesn't make doctors less relevant. In fact, if anything, it makes the practice of medicine even more sophisticated, because now not only do you need to know what's in the medicine books, but you also need to know about tech in order to operate the robots, right? And the way I see it, it is very analogous to that. So, I personally, I don't fear that this will take away jobs. I do have a sense, an intuitive sense, that two things based on studies that we've seen. One is that it will create a higher, lower benchmark. So what happens is, I've read, and I've ran a few, but I've read numerous studies that show that, for instance, with the use of AI, like let's say I'm very bad and Rodrigo is very good and you're excellent, right, Vivita? If we all use AI, my very bad is going to become average, and yours isn't going to become more than excellent, and Rodrigo's maybe becomes like a little bit better than good. But so far, the studies show that it's like the lower baseline is increased, and but what happens is when the lower baseline is increased, right, because you don't have any more like terrible, horrible translations, the standards for excellence naturally increase over time.
Hmm.
So people are likely to expect more out of a translation. They're going to want to see, does not does it have any errors or not? Is it accurate or not? But does it do what I want it to do? So yeah, I do think that the standards will be higher.
Sure. Yeah. In any case, the level is really good, but what we need to take into account is that still, because this, I feel that we pass from NMT to LLMs and the combination of them, and we go towards a personalized MT and all these concepts. But what we don't have so far achieved is the training of the linguists, meaning that, yes, as you said, here we have human annotation and human evaluation, which serves the training and retraining of the engine. And this happens in one system. So we replace annotators by the linguists themselves, and we have one job. Maybe it's annotator, it is not anymore linguist, but in any case, it's someone who is reskilled, upskilled, and expert. And this is what linguists need to know, that the self development is in their ethical aspect of the job. So they need to train and retrain themselves all the time. And this way they train and retrain the engines. So we need a level of expertise that we don't have right now. And what this expertise is, it's not anymore about linguistics. It's about if linguists are trainable, one thing. And second, how fast can they do problem solving and decision making, and against what. So I would suggest, based on my research, that what we need right now, the basic skills for AI and post editing and all this stuff, is problem solving and decision making.
I agree with you, but a few caveats is that
Hmm.
I think that there's immense machine learning complexity and engineering going on in what's in behind the scenes, right? So what you see is very simple. You just see a segment, you click on the segment, you get a suggestion, you can change the terms, you can even translate old school and say, just change this to region, and you don't have to work within, let's say, the paradigm that I was showing, and you can use the spell check as regular, and boom, you can translate like the old way and still be a lot more productive. And just one thing that it's an example I always like sharing, but probably my favorite users are my parents. They're users of BWX, and they're 70. My mom is 71. My father is he's 76, and my mother has had like terrible health problems, like she's had strokes, and she's not, definitely not at the top of her game, and it was very hard for her to translate. She's been a translator all her life. It was very hard for her to translate before using BWX, and it did take her a few weeks getting used to it, but now she can output like thousands and thousands of words a day really easily, typing very little. And as far as the learning, all I'm saying is that I think that there's already a lot that can be extracted even with zero learning. I think that in the direction that you're going, which is, really the future, I agree. It's like the more translators can understand and be open to working in different ways, the more likely the outcome is going to be positive, right? And going back to what you're saying, I think with machine translation, for instance, I think I wrote an article about this in my Substack, and let me show you here. I don't know basically how machine translation compromised our ability to understand the positive potential of generative AI in translation. And really, what the article, I'm not going to read the article, obviously, but what the article, the gist of it is that with machine translation, it was always like machine translation versus the translator, right? Lots of agencies, for instance, pre-translating stuff with machine translation, sending it out to translators, say, hey, it's pre-translated, I'm going to pay you half your rate, stuff like that. And but then there was no real tool to work with post editing, right? It was just kind of like, well, now I have this stuff, it's pre-translated, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's garbage, I'm being paid less, I have to work more for less. So there was no real, for at least for the translator, there was no real gain from machine translation. Quite the opposite, I would say. It only, for the most part, it detracted from a translator experience. So I think that naturally there's like even more resistance with AI. It's kind of like this is going to be like machine translation, but only worse. And that's the subtlety that I think it's like stage one, even before the learning goes, is getting rid of preconceived ideas of what this is and what this isn't, and understanding that it's inexpensive, right? The subscription to BWX, to what I'm showing here, costs $9 a month, so it's very inexpensive, very accessible, very affordable, very easy to use once you're in the editor. Like all I'm doing like is clicking on segments and making changes, confirming, so super simple stuff. And at the same time, the benefit is there. But I do agree with you that like long term, like being open to learning and working in new ways, that's what makes the difference. So yeah, 100%.
The amazing thing with this platform that you have a great innovation, I mean, because you showcase the collaborative model. So here we see how AI collaborates with human, collaborates with anything that was existing before, and this is how we help linguists. So this is the important thing. As you said, it was very heavy to check the glossaries, to check term bases, to check the TM. Now, if you have everything ready for you, then the only problem you have is if it is accurate or not. This is what you have to check in the end, I believe, because other than that, everything is replaced. All the references, the sources that you have are in place. So this
Mm-hmm.
is really nice. And this is for linguists to understand that everything that exists right now regarding technology is to enhance the user experience, one, and it is collaborative on the other hand. So it's not something to replace, it is something assistive. This is the important thing, and this is the message, and this is what I really enjoy here.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better, Viveta. That's what we're going for. It's really this collaborative effort, and again, it's, I think, you're big into linguistics and really the idea of intertextuality and like dialogue, right? It's like the idea is that this is a continuous dialogue between translator and engine and translator. And there's one example, Rodrigo still needs to put that into practice, right? But we're normally used to exactly how you were saying, like with machine translation, it's basically, it's a monologue, right? Machine translation translates it and translator has this and like, oh, this is it, you're stuck with it, and now there's nothing really you can do anymore. And now you don't have the tools to edit, to do any of that. And now the idea is using LLMs, and this is one thing that's super important. Like at no point are we using LLMs to truly translate anything. We're using LLMs as enhanced decision
Hmm.
makers, not as translation engines. So
Mhm.
that's very important. It's very different working one way or another. But 100%. And this is something I've never seen before, by the way. This is in our dev. I was showing our demo environment, but in our DevOps, we've enabled here this button called AI powered actions. And one thing I wanted to check here is we were working with a segment that had quite a few cloud tags in here, and let's see if it works or if it doesn't work, because that was the example that I said that the machine translation got rid of these tags. You can see like the NBSP
Mhm.
tags over here. And now let's say with the A powered actions, let's fix tags and see what happens. Maybe nothing is going to happen because this is having even been tested. It's before beta. So let's see if there's. I don't even know if I'm clicking on the right
Yeah,
things.
this is what I noticed, and I wanted to ask you about the tags.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
let's see.
So we do have an option for that, but I need to see how I can enable that. But this is what it's going to look like as soon as it's live. So basically, the translator will have the ability to translate, proofread, um, look at the advice that it's providing, check the smells, and fix the tags. So all of that is going to be available. And I wonder just what if I have to do something different here. But yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm missing something, but just wanted to give you a sneak peek. This is what it's going to look
So
like
by
in
fixing the
in a
tags,
week.
you mean
Mhm.
that all the tags are going to be in the right place automatically?
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
The best,
Yeah,
the best
that's what it does.
translator's friend. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have examples for that, but for some reason I am not knowing how to operate this. But again, this is in our DevOps. I shouldn't even be showing this. I just get
Gabriel,
too curious. Yeah, go ahead.
there is one good question, not question, just a statement coming from Eric saying DeepL is still superior to most AI tools. AI often is often a buzzword.
Could be, but the whole point of our paradigm, right? If you go into settings and you go into your account and you go into machine translation settings, you can add depot to BWX. And the thing is that I think is it Eric who said that,
Eric,
Rodrigo?
Eric,
Yeah. So we're not. I don't know if it's clear based on everything that we've been discussing, but we're not using AI as an alternative to Depot. And you're absolutely right, Eric. I mean, if you go into ChatGPT and you paste something and say, "Hey, translate this," and compare it to Depot, and maybe Rodrigo, you can even paste in the comments. We have a study on that, and it confirms what you're saying. It's not, the AI isn't better than Depot in most cases for sure, but we're not using AI as a translator. We're using AI as a language resolver. So if you add Depot here to your credentials as an MT provider, and when you're translating here, what you're seeing in machine translation, the baseline will be coming from Depot. But if you have terms in your glossary, if you have stuff in your translation memory, it's going to learn from that and it's going to try to do its best to give you not necessarily just a better feed, but a more contextualized feed. And by contextualized, it means contextual to your way of writing. So again, if it's French and you're using tu versus vous, if it's more informal than formal, if you're using a certain kind of verbiage, it learns, and that's what's so cool, right? We're not trying to compete with DeepL in any way. We're trying, basically, like Viveta is saying, we're trying to give you tools, Eric, that allow you to dialogue with DeepL in a way that's currently not possible. So
So now
that's what we're
I
focusing
I
on.
have a question, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
When, for example, you have a fuzzy match, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a feature to interact with the fuzzy match and improve it?
Yes, 100%. So let's pull up a fuzzy match here. All right. Let's see if I have a fuzzy match in Portuguese. I'm absolutely sure I have a fuzzy match I can show you. Let's take a look at here. Hmm. No match. I can change. I'll do this. I'll change it in the translation memory. I'll confirm a few segments here, and then I'll change it in the TM, and it'll become a fuzzy match. Let's do that. So let's say we confirmed these two segments. Let's take a look at this one, for instance. So let me go back to the translation memory. Uh-huh. Here it is. This is the segment. So I'm going to edit this. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm going to wait. Let's see which one I want to edit. Here we go. Actually, make it a. Hold on, Vivita. Let me see what I can do here to pull up a good fuzzy example. This is it. Okay, so this is. Let me see here. Not fuzzy. Okay, I know what I'll do. It'll be more on brute force side, but it'll work. So let's create a fuzzy over here. I'll open the bear with me while we go. So let me open this here. Let me make a few changes here. ViewWorks. It's not a cloud-based system that renders. Okay, that's one example here. And let's say translation administration and enterprises and see how it functions. And let's see runtime. Let's remember dynamic. And yeah, I think those are good enough. Let's export this as a Word. And let's save this as Behel and Fuzzy in the desktop. Okay, perfect. So let's go back here to our platform and create a new project. Now with the fuzzy match, here we go. Perfect. npm. Notice that when I type in the organizational unit, and we're not talking about that, but it's basically, it creates the projects very easily in like very few steps. So let's go into translation and control review. It's creating the projects. Let's take a look at Portuguese, which I'm sure I have a few.
By the way,
things
the
in.
interface is great.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's very fast too. That's one
It's
part I like it.
friendly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy. It's what a linguist would like to have.
Thank you. Perfect. So here we have a 94% match, the fuzzy that we just created.
Mhm.
And notice that, yes, it worked perfectly. So it now, instead of the translator, if I click here and I go into TM differences, this is what we changed, right? Not and delivers to renders. Now, notice that the translation offered to the translator in the TM, it says BureauWorks é uma plataforma, which is BureauWorks is, right? But we changed the meaning completely. We said is not. And the translation now says is not. So that scenario is completely resolved. And the glossary was applied. And let's say the second that renders, it also changed the, it chose a word that made sense with the change I made. And look at the smells is picking up wordiness and lack of clarity. So pretty cool, right? It's the smells is very open-ended. It picks up all kinds of different potential problems. Let's see over here if we have any more fuzzies. Yeah, this I changed too much here to get more fuzzies. Yeah, I think let me see what the translation thresholds are.
Yeah, I was asking this because normally fuzzy matches may take even more time
Oh
than
yeah,
editing.
a huge
the
pain. A hundred
DMP.
percent, a
So
100%.
it's
Yeah,
really convenient.
100
Mm-hmm.
percent. Yeah,
That's
that's
great.
absolutely true. Yeah, the fuzzy matches are basically always resolved, right? You're always getting
Mm-hmm.
something that that is resolved. As and what's cool is that it works very similarly in any given language. Like yesterday, we were doing a demo and of how it works in Arabic and how it works in. We had like over 100 translators, and they wanted to see how things working in Bulgarian and how things were working in. Oh, you can see Greek and let me know. Actually, this is Galician. Let's take a look at Greek so you can tell me how it looks like. So let's create a project in Greek. And I didn't even realize I talked so much. It's already 11:48, and we didn't even go into subtitling. So let's do that. But before, I just want to give you a peek at the Greek so you can tell me what it looks like. So let's add Greek here to the project, removing the standard
I have
languages.
another question.
Mm-hmm.
I feel anxious. I want to ask so many things.
No, it's all
So
great.
so I wanted to ask you in the meantime, let's say that we have the output
Mm-hmm.
and we have fuzzy matches, we have the interaction, we get all the support and the assistance by AI. In
Mm-hmm.
parallel with this, in the case of subtitles, can we say, like, a background rule that we want a specific character limit for the length?
Yes. I'll show you and this
Hmm.
is the Greek, by the way, so you have an idea of
Okay,
what it's looking like.
fantastic.
Notice that the machine translation is always a little bit different. Not always, typically a little bit different than the feed provided because it's learning from that. But it is highly resolved, right? You're not
Mhm.
if we can teach terms and stuff, but just wanted to show you that it's there. And if you'd like, I'd love you to test it later and give us your feedback. And yeah,
That's nice.
yeah. And so let me pull up the video example just so that I don't completely botch even more our um, our webinar, which has been very delightful. But I talked very little about videos, which is a reason why a lot of people are here. So let's open an SRT file. And first,
Mhm.
I'll answer. So this is the SRT preview. And typical, right? Still, you have the AI capability. So it's looking for smells and it's looking for, so it's picking up inconsistencies and accuracies. It's suggesting things, same principles, right? I can add terms to the glossary, it'll learn in runtime, all of that. But I can also turn on the video preview, and now it's loading the actual video. And once I hit the preview functionality, and I click on any given frame, it'll take me to the exact frame that the video is taking place on. So if I go here, like you'll see someone else, let's see here, see, it'll take me to the exact moment in the video. Super contextual. As far as like not increasing the length of the subtitles, that as well, that is a syntactical thing. So you would do it regularly here in the QA issues, and you'd be able to do that in the length here.
Mhm. Great.
But yeah, you can do it. But the cool thing is really being able to see in context what the videos are looking like, getting these really smart suggestions, and yeah, it's the same kind of principle.
Now, regarding some subtitles, because we
Yeah.
know that there is a sort of creativity, the cultural aspect. When you
Mm-hmm.
start, for example, the revision, let's say the
Mm-hmm.
editing, and you give your hint about a specific style that you would like to use, or for example, if it is a dialogue, there is one person talking X way and the other Z way. Can it learn on the way and reproduce the specific style that you use?
Okay, it will learn, but like let's say you have two different people in the video and they talk in completely different styles, then it wouldn't be able to differentiate them probably. At least not
Mhm.
now, not in the current state of the tech. It will evolve into that where we can be like hyper contextual and really understand. Okay, this is character A speaking versus character B speaking, for instance, and one is super formal, the other super informal. But it will learn. Like over here, for instance, what's cool is this is all students speaking, and the language is very informal, and the translations are also very informal because it's
Mm.
learning from that. And what's cool is in many examples, like the machine translation will be a lot more formal, but so here's a good example. um, the AI is trying to be very informal about how things are being expressed. And let's see here, for instance, you can teach it. Let's say right here it was a little bit more formal, and you can see, let's see, but I changed that. Like let's see what the changes were. Let me unconfirm this. Oh, this has already been reviewed in another workflow, but you can teach it to be less formal, more formal, and it will learn from your changes.
Mhm. And is there a chance to have three different alternatives of style for a specific segment?
That's a great question. So right now, and when I click on AI review, it'll give me one suggestion. But one of the things that, so for instance, here it's giving a different suggestion for the same sentence, and it's explaining why, uh, the reasoning behind that suggestion. But in the what I was showing here in our DevOps, what you'll be able to see here right now, the advice changes, we're going to further customize it so that you can configure the kinds of suggestions that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
So it's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
And Gabriel,
Yes.
yeah, we have one question about what kind of video and audio clip file does BWX support?
Great question. So, as far as this clip that I'm showing is an MP4, it's an SRT that I uploaded. As far as, let's take a look at the supported files because it works. Can't type anymore. Here we go. So as far as supported extensions for file input, these are the ones. And notice that SRT is right here. VTT as well works as well. As far as the video goes, I'm pretty sure MP4 works, but I'll have to take a look to answer that. That's a good question. As far as what video works, most of our users upload MP4s basically.
Great, great. Well, Shelley Upton asked just one statement. You can't use DeepL Pro with it. I think it's possible, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's exactly
Yes,
what I was showing. So you go into my account, you go into MT settings, you choose the provider, DeepL export. You either export your credentials for DeepL Pro or upload. Again, the key requirement is that you have to be using a version of DeepL that gives you access to the API integration. So then you'll be able to have your credentials, select DeepL here, either paste your credentials here or upload the JSON file, and you're good.
great.
You also have to set it as default and set what language pairs you want them for. So that's one of the cool things. You can create different configurations for different languages if you'd like. So have like REPL for one language and combination, and then have like AutoML, Google's AutoML for another one. So it's very flexible as far as
And
which engines you integrate. Mhm.
great, awesome. And we have one question coming from two people, from
Mhm.
from from Brian Shaw and Educativos. Both are asking about confidentiality, and
Mhm.
thank you very much for the demo. I joined the presentation late, so I'm not sure this topic was covered or not. I have a question about the data security. Since it was a big topic among clients, will the data be shared with ChatGPT when using GenAI, or does it encapsulate it with TMS system?
Yeah, that's a great question. Normally I touch on this, but today I didn't. So let's touch on it before we wrap. So when you go into account settings, your accounts by default, you create an account in BureauWorks, this will be turned off. So the enable AI transition review functionalities will be off. And essentially, if you want to experience the features that I was showing with the contextual learning and all of that, this needs to be turned on. When you turn it on, it gives you a data privacy and security warning. And essentially, short answer is yes, we share data with OpenAI and Azure OpenAI um, via API. Now, before I'm going to confirm this, let's take a look at what Azure says about data security, and it's very similar to what OpenAI says. This is, and they do a great job at documenting this because like it's a long document, but they make a short TLDR version at the very top. And essentially, first thing, right, when the data leaves BWX via API, it's encrypted fully using the best TLS standards. So the data flows encrypted. It's stored by OpenAI or Azure with encryption at rest as well. It's not available to other customers. It's not available to OpenAI, not available to improve OpenAI models, not used to improve Microsoft or third party products or services, not used for automatically improving Azure OpenAI models. And essentially, this is the most important part. It's exclusively for your use, right? So, essentially, it's very different from when you paste content into chat gpt when you paste content into chat gpt. I haven't even looked at those terms in a while, but I remember last time I looked a few months ago, it was very clear that the data was being used for training purposes, and that is one of the main goals of chat gpt, is getting more and more prompts and completion so that the models can become better. And when you're using the enterprise version with API, you get a lot of assurances around data. BWX is a SOC 2 type 2 company, so we're very careful about how we manage data. So if you do decide to turn it on, you have to type that you've read and agree to activate the AI feature, and that will enable the AI functionalities that we've shown. For companies that have their own instances of OpenAI or Azure, they can type in their OpenAI key and then it'll point directly to their instance. If they have their own instance of Azure, they can type in their key, resource name, deployment name, and we'll use that. Otherwise, the BWX default is using our instance of GPT. And again, I I can't speak for everyone or every context. Obviously, like I say this all the time. I have friends who are in Web3 and crypto and believe Microsoft and the devil are basically the same thing, and I respect that opinion. I am in corporate cloud services. I believe in Microsoft. I believe in AWS. I believe in Google. I have to, and I think their assurances are pretty good as far as data security goes.
Awesome, great. Yeah, and I don't know how many in our audience today are coming from marketing, but basically today, ChatGPT, they are crawling, they are extracting content from the web. So if you have content online, it's possibly they are capturing your content, and also, and right now they have a way how you can put in your HTML a tag to block their crawler, like uh, Google. So even when you are not using their API or any kind of related to them, they are still capturing our content online. So yeah.
Yeah, it's when you get in. I also have stuff about that on my merging minds. If anybody is interested, I write a lot about privacy, so I have a few articles on quantifying the privacy concern over GPT, GPT AI privacy and content production and localization. I go pretty deeply into some of the items that Rodrigo's saying. It's like when you open Pandora's box about privacy and start really trying to understand how private your data really is, you'll notice that yeah, it's stuff that can be somewhat bothersome. And again, it's a matter, in my opinion, it's a matter of knowingly and accepting certain risks of operating in a cloud-based world. So that's my perspective. Maybe I'm too fatalistic, but yeah, I don't believe in a world where I can keep truly things what I consider to be private. It's just not compatible with modern life, in my
And
opinion.
and by the way, Elias asked about the kinds of video formats, and Jamil, our head of product, he's attentive and he answered in the chat with all
Great.
the formats. It's MP4, MQV, MOV, AVI. So yeah, take a look in our chat.
Thanks, Shamir. You saved my skin. Thanks a lot for hearing and for giving a great answer.
Nice, nice. Great, great. We have a couple of questions here. One, it's from Jordan. Oh, Jordan, he was yesterday with us in the pros webinar. Sometimes customers have a lot of formatting requirements. Can we replicate the most important ones?
I'm not sure if I understood as far as formatting requirements. Basically,
Maybe.
when
Mhm.
you export the file, the formatting will match the original. So if it's, but maybe I'm not understanding fully the question.
Right. Um, Let me see if Jordan can explain a little bit more about the this point. So, and also we have another question. How do you input tags if some of them need to be fixed?
That's what we're releasing very soon. So where just to give you a sneak peek, the A powered actions right now you notice that it's not enabled. Maybe because I have to enable something here. Let me take a look. Let me show expanded tags. Yeah, I don't know how to enable this right now, but if it were in like in the same, notice that the smells and the advice changes and proofread are all in white and fix tags is grayed out. If it were enabled, by clicking this button it would automatically fix the tags. So yeah, that's that, and this is coming out in the next, I would say in the next 7 days it'll be in production. What about you, Vivette? Any more
Yeah,
questions
I
or any?
have a question, but
Mm-hmm.
as a trainer, I also I don't know if my idea suggestion would be a good fit here because I'm not by default a subtitler. I'm a translator and post editor, but in this case, when working in a tool, you can be a subtitler. It's just a different subject field. Let's say it's a different mode. So in this case, I would like to ask you, as you have all these tools and they're really nice, etc. Some people are translators, but they're not exactly subtitlers, and they would like to be involved, but they don't know the technicalities of it. So, in this case, would it be a nice idea to help us become subtitlers and have more services open by having a training session about um, the BeerWorks platform, the technicalities, what we have to check as subtitlers when using the system, but at the same time learning how to do subtitling, in a system. So to have a quality job, if this makes sense, because this would be really attractive for translators.
I agree. I do have to point out, Viveta, that like the way we've designed BWX is not as a subtitling tool. So it does show the SRT files and the videos. We developed that mostly because we noticed that lots of our enterprise clients had a big pain around approving video content. So most cat tools, like they'll maybe someone will see the SRT files and they'll say, okay, then someone will burn the video, then they'll look at the video and they'll say, no, there's a mistake or there's a line break, there's something here, then going back to pre-production, then post-production. It's just like this mess. So what we developed was a way to preview things very easily. But it doesn't have like the full subtitle capabilities where you can, let's say, introduce break the time codes in different ways, expand time
Mhm.
codes, decrease time codes, or yeah, it doesn't. It's not like a subtitle workshop or something like that where you can really do a lot with the subtitles. It presupposes that that work has been done and you're using BWX just as the translation engine. As the translation engine, it's going to be super powerful because of the quality of suggestions and how it learns, but it's not going to be a great subtitling tool, and it's not meant for that.
So let's say, because some people in the audience, I hope not, may not have the expertise in subtitling, and they're like translators. Okay, so let's say that I am translator and I want to have a translation of subtitles in BWX. In this
Mm-hmm.
case, what should I ask my client? What should I
Um,
have?
all you need is an SRT file or a VTT file.
That's it, because this is
That's it.
what we know.
And
Perfect.
if you have the video, all the better, right? If you have
hmm
the video, then you can preview it as well.
So it opens horizons, let's say.
Yeah, that's a generous way of putting it. I think it does open horizons, and but the main thing also is if you work with a client, right, and let's say you finish your translation with BWX, you can share that translation with your client to look at and say, hey, is this good in context? They can look at the video, they can be happy with it, and sign up
hmm
on it.
Fantastic.
And we have a question from Elias saying, if I use DeepL as MTs instead of AI, will DeepL have the same capability to learn from TMs and glossaries as the AI does? Great question, Elias. Again, just to emphasize, it's not DeepL or AI, it's DeepL and AI. So the AI is the learning layer over DeepL. So you can continue to use DeepL and continue to have the same capability to learn from TMs and glossaries, just as your current experience when you don't turn on DeepL. So yeah, short answer is yes, but long answer is what I just said. It doesn't. It's not AI or MT. It's AI and contexts and TMs, glossaries, MTs are all part of context that we use.
Yeah, this is a huge confusion, because this is what I study right now. And when we say AI translation, what do we mean? AI translation is a concept which embraces the NMT and the generative AI and everything. So in this case, your case, it's what you're doing is the generative AI in an assistive way to any machine translation engine or system we would like to choose in BWX. This is what you do. And this is really important, as you said, because as translators, because there is this hype, we think that all translation technology companies, they do LLMs, they create engines and things like that. But in this case, we choose the engine we want, and then we use the generative AI in different assistive options and features to help us do our work faster, which is amazing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, obviously, I think it's amazing, but but I do think it's exactly what you talked about, the control aspect. It's the full control. It's like, what do I want to teach? And what's really interesting, we didn't go into it, but as a translator, you can create separate engines very easily. So, just as an example, like let's say I translate like you into English into Greek and English into Spanish, as an example. And let's say you have a client, you do English into Spanish legal and you do English into Greek marketing, just as an example, right? So, you can configure BWX to have for English into Greek legal, or I forget even the combinations I said, but let's say English into Greek legal, you can create a certain set of translation memories, a certain set of glossaries. You can use, maybe you decide to use AWS for that because you like the machine translation for that language pair better. And then for another, for the English into Greek, maybe you choose to use Depot and you use a completely different set of translation memories, completely different set of glossaries, which will result in completely different feeds. So the idea is that you, as a translator, you can build these engines without having to know any prompt engineering, without having to know anything really other than how to sign up for them and getting your credentials. So I think there's two themes that you're talking about that are very important. One is the, I forget, the collaboration or collaborative aspect. Two is the control, and I said two, but there's a third which I think is very important: the accessibility. It's like making this very accessible to everybody. I think those are the three things
Yeah.
that are most
And
important.
here, with what you said, Gabriel, we reached the point where we answer the question about the future of the translator. We see that it happens something that it never happened before. And I just realize it every day while I'm studying. It is that in the past, when I started in 2003, let's say, nobody knew about translation memories. It was really fresh. In the university, there were some, courses, but not really many. So nobody was like, I'm going to use translation memories. Everyone was afraid of being replaced. And now we come again in this era of machine translation. Again, we're afraid of being replaced. And we go into LLMs. Again, we're afraid of being replaced, but we have never been replaced in 20 years. So, what is going on is that we have now a power. We can control things. We have the power to master a tool and say, look, I want you to do this, and that for me. And finally, we have an employee for us, and we are still afraid. I mean, this is a question, a rhetoric question. We should not be afraid. We are masters right now of the technology, and we know how to use it, like it happened in all other domains. Whoever is self developed, they can go ahead. They can evolve in this industry. So, this is the message that now we are powerful.
I agree. It's a beautiful message. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And sometimes I don't state that message so clearly because I like people to arrive at that conclusion. But I couldn't agree more. I think that the opportunity has never been bigger for us to become even greater masters of our own skills. I think that there's room for translator income to increase. I think there's room for the skills to become even more appreciated because, again, there's a lot of intellectual prowess when you translate. It's not easy, but it's been trivialized. And I think that there's a way, this is an opportunity to, let's say, reclaim that ownership, that complexity, the intellectual sophistication that goes on when you translate. And just a side note, I really love what you said. We have a question also, Rodrigo, from Eric. And I agree with him. He's saying that the biggest pain with SRTs is that line breaks ruin MT quality because units get smaller 100%. It'd be good to be able to turn the SRT into full sentences like subtitle edit, translate, then recreate the SRT 100%. And like I said, right now, BWX doesn't have the capability of merging SRTs, changing SRTs. It presupposes that the SRT that was generated is good. The translation quality will be elevated because it's going to be learning from you, from your glossaries and everything like that. But it doesn't solve the pain that you're talking about, which I 100% agree, which is making sure you have a good quality SRT in place to begin with. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Okay,
Very
very good.
cool.
I think we answered all the questions, and also I would like to invite everyone here today to join our next webinars. We've been hosting these webinars on Wednesday, so we hope we can add more content in the next weeks. So stay tuned. We will publish more content, and I would like to thank you, Viveta, for your participation here today. It's so I'm glad you accepted in the last minute our invitation. So I hope we can meet and see you again. Like I said, you met Gabriel in person first than me because you are met Gabriel in Malmo. So yeah, we'll see. I hope we can see you again. I don't know if you folks would like to let one last deployment or feel free.
It was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. I really enjoyed the discussion. I enjoyed BWX. It was fantastic to learn all of these things today. And yeah, thank you. And I hope to see you again. I will follow.
Yeah, thank you, Viveta, so much for your time. Really great knowledge. Want to thank all our audience. Great questions, great comments, super participative. Again, really excited to be doing this with everybody, and hopefully we'll connect soon, Viveta. Get your feedback on how everything was, and talk more about other opportunities. But really great talking to you, and thank you, Rodrigo, for setting this up. You're always an amazing matchmaker.
Nice. Thank you, everyone. Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye
Thank you
bye.
both. Bye bye.